That's Search for Yeti and their latest single from their debut album, Dark So Soon. The Wellington-based trio is unique in that all three members write, sing, and play. Here's Sean Barker to tell us how it all works.
We are a three-piece in terms of when you see us live, you do see three people on stage. Sonically, you hear a lot more. So I play drums, I sing backing vocals, but I also trigger a variety of synths and loops and whatnot from my pads. We've got Luke, who is lead singer and plays guitar with a pedal board that is probably as big as my drum kit.
Right.
And then you've got Vince, who is our ambidextrous beast over on one side of the stage. Sometimes plays bass, often plays guitar. He's got a Moog Taurus bass pedals that he uses often to bring this kind of low bottom end sound while he's playing guitar. Having said that, on the record, there's piano, there's lap steel, there's dulcimers, there's banjos, there's a wide range of sounds.
Gotcha. And I know that each of you has kind of worked with each other in various configurations before this particular. So what it is about this that makes you feel this is what's the way to go?
Yeah, so the history of Luke and Vince go back longer than they're the earliest connection.
Right.
They were in a band called What Noisy Cats, which did a fair amount around Wellington way. They had an album that came out, and then various members moved, and all that. You know, life happens with bands.
Oh, yes.
And then in that void, I had moved to Wellington from Nelson and was looking to get back into the game. It was a bit old-fashioned, really. I think I saw an ad online of someone posting looking for a drummer, and I messaged what turned out to be Luke, and he said, "Oh, well, actually, that was so old. I'm not now, but hey, let's meet up." And we met at Meow and had a beer and immediately connected over Sigor Rós and Frank Turner and Bright Eyes and bands like that.
I'm not sure when you say bands like that, those are fairly disparate sounding bands. So
yes.
Sigor Rós is a long way from Bright Eyes, is a long way from Frank Turner.
Welcome to the world of Search for Yeti, because we can talk about that later, but that's the melting pot of who we are. But yeah, so you could say it was meant to be. We met, we hung out, we ended up getting a band together for a wee while called Tiger Meat Lion. We played a few shows around Wellington, and then, you know, kids and whatnot.
Yep.
And then a long story a little bit shorter, Vince and Luke had started playing together again. They had a rehearsal room and they were just making sounds. And Luke said, "Hey, do you want to come and just have a jam and see how it sounds?" And I did, and we just played around. And I think sometimes you know when something feels right, and
right.
Music's beautiful in that way, is that you feel it and you think, yeah, there's something here. So that's how we all ended up in a room together. And then, I mean, it was the start of a beautiful thing. That was probably 6 years ago, I guess, when we probably first all came together.
Right.
And yeah, to start with, it was very much let's just make some sounds. And then we didn't really have any songs to start with. We had some ideas that the lads had collectively and individually had. And then we just pretty much started with let's start making sounds and go from there, really.
Right. So on the streaming service that I watch and listen to, I noticed that all the compositional credits are to all three of you equally, lyrically and musically. Is that reflective of the way it really is, or are one song more yours and one more Vince's? How does it work?
Yeah, we've kind of got again. It was quite nice to be in a band where pretty early on we said, look, how are we gonna play this? You know, because we knew that we were all bringing huge amounts of influence to every song that we had. So the arrangement that we had is, I mean, we all do co-write every song. Uh-huh. If you look at the credits on the album, what you will see is you'll see probably a different first name for different songs. So that's just to recognize if somebody had the initial demo or the initial tune. So there's a mix on the album of songs that were brought to the band as individuals.
Yep.
But it is a really nice way of acknowledging we all get involved. There's parts of songs where someone might have added the vocal line that becomes the big hook to the outro. Someone might have had a middle section idea. And I can tell you, having been in bands previously, that it's not always as seamless as that. It's quite nice to just have that, and you all know your place, and you just all do what's best for the song.
Gotcha. And in the process of doing that, is there kind of a consensus among the three of you what it should sound like? What does Search for Yeti sound like?
Well, Search for Yeti in the studio while we're mixing is a different beast to Search for Yeti when we're out in public. Some things are best left behind doors. Mixing the album was a huge effort because the plus side of having three of you is you only have three opinions. The negative of three, only having three people, is everyone gets a good proportion of the say. Let's put it that way. All our whānau, you always fight with your whānau and you disagreements, but you always end up to a common goal. And I'd say with us, we have kind of an unwritten rule that if one person brought the song in, then if it's borderline, then look, that person will probably get the final say. But to be fair, I think I can speak on behalf of all three of the lads that when we listen to that album, there's not really anything we think, oh gosh, I wish we didn't do that. So, as much as it pains you sometimes to admit, actually, your idea is better.
And I'm guessing there possibly is a fourth voice, being your producer, Toby Lloyd. What's he add to the mix?
Yeah, so Toby was a dream to work with. We had demoed the entire album. We'd spent a long time prepping to begin the final recording. And then the next step was, well, who do we want to work with that can bring that fourth voice to it? So Toby was someone that came up in conversation. We all went away, listened to the stuff that he'd worked on with other people. We liked the variety of sounds and people that he'd worked with. And then you arrange to just catch up and have a chat. And straight away, there was a connection there. And I guess like all good producers, they let you do your thing. Right. They don't jump in and say, no, do it this way. It's more the silence that tells you whether you're on the right track or not. And why don't we just run another one? Or, let's try that. It's that kind of... it's almost like you're herding the cats, right? You're giving your opinions, and Toby was the master of that. And then once everything was laid down, when we'd get the mixes back, he'd do things that we could only dream of sound-wise. Right.
So when you did have it down and you heard the playback of the final thing, did it sound to you like what you thought it would when you started out?
I guess what was interesting, one of the interesting ones was that we had demoed the whole album, but there were two or three songs that we'd kind of finessed to put out online, because when you're for a new band, you're starting to get gigs, you need to have something online. So we had a Bandcamp which were self-mixed and recorded tracks, which we thought sounded okay.
Yep.
And they did sound okay. I think that was the biggest comparison of them when the final tracks were recorded from the album, and you're then listening through the speakers going, oh shit, this is real. This is a step up, Yeah.
Yep. Now you mentioned it, everybody brings their own songs to the band, and the rest of them kind of have at it. What's one of the ones that you brought to the band?
Yeah. So I'm a sporadic writer. I have millions of ideas, lots of ideas, and it'll take me a long time, but every now and then it will all come together. My additions to the album, there's two tracks that actually sit next to each other in the running order. The first one is What You Mean to Me, which was a single we released last year, which it is very different.
Yes.
But has a Yeti sound. It's a power pop song.
Yep. Big riff.
It's got a big riff. It's got lyrics that talk about grocery lines and cats in shows, and also touches on relationships and in the deeper level, your own mental health and all that kind of stuff, but done in a 3.5 minute pop song, because that's one of the things I love.
Can you feel it in the air? Do you know that someone cares? It seems you're on a hook. Your life is a book that you have read before. So what's the point of thinking something more? But let me change your view about what you can do when you give that last major turn.
That was a good example of taking a song and making it a Yeti sound. And then the other one, which is the one that I brought into, is a track called The One, which is the penultimate track on the album, which is a bit of we've got kind of two behemoths at the end. We've got The One that then goes into Red,
Right.
The one is a song that I'd had for a long, long time, and that is probably one for me that in my head I wanted it to be big and having epic guitars and strings and horns, and I was able to make that happen on the record. And but the contribution from, again, what Luke and Vince brought to that song made the song a Yeti song. It's yeah.
Like thieves in the night, we hide in the shadows of different lives. It's not right, but it's hard to see beyond the light that you brought to me.
It kind of has a kind of hypnotic Beatlesque kind of sound to, you know, kind of Strawberry Fields, I Am the Walrus kind of era Beatles.
Yeah, I mean that's my big loves are, you know, I grew up with the Beatles being the band that I absolutely adored. I would obsess over. Ringo is for me, you know, drummers don't get better than Ringo.
I just heard his new album. He's got an album, a country album coming out in January. So,
oh, great.
It's produced by T-Bone Burnett, so it's good quality stuff, and I think you'll like it.
He's just got all the best players in the world in his band, right?
Yeah,
like
exactly.
Your Ringo Starr.
Yeah,
you don't say no to that call, right?
Why would you?
yeah. But you know, so the Beatles, and the string arrangements in my head that I worked on with Richie Forrest, who Richie was the original drummer in the Phoenix Foundation, who's a good friend of mine, and he helped and worked on the orchestration strings that we used on that track. And again, that was a combination of some things I'd sing into a mic and go, can you make the strings do this? And then he also wrote some really beautiful parts to that tune as well. But yeah, thank you. The Beatles are definitely a strong influence on that song. Yeah.
And on What You Mean to Me, you did make a video where there's some guy dressed as a cat.
Yes. So, which made total sense, right? We're fortunate that we've got some very talented people around us, and there's a brilliant videographer, and he does it all, Jose Barbosa, who is a good friend and fortunately really likes the band. And we kind of had we wanted to shoot a video, and I thought Jose would be the one where we could give him the song and go, can you just think of a concept? And we threw around some of the lines, and there's a line there which is around, you know, like cats in shows with silly bows, it's hard to see what you mean to me. And we all own cats in a band, we're cat people. And so he had this idea of getting a cat suit.
Like cats in shows with silly bows. Is it hard to see what you mean to me? Can you hear me? Can you hear me now?
He roped in a friend of his who he was a producer. Jose was a producer on the project. He roped in one of his producer friends to wear the cat suit. The error they made is they'd gone out for some drinks and lunch, and apparently the cat had a few wines before putting on this full cat suit, and then was asked to run through Britomart Station and go on carousels. And they had to have a 20-minute break so he could just gather his thoughts, I think, before they finished it. But I
was going to ask, we passed out after the drinks. And
yeah, I mean, what went on under that mask? Who knows, Marty? We don't know. No one knows that.
Nobody knows. We don't want to know. No. So I'm wondering, out of the 10 tracks, if somebody wanted to know what is like an example of the search for Yeti, to kind of an entrance point, which one would you suggest to them?
Well, see, that's where it gets tricky. It gets tricky because you'll often say, "Oh, we got an eclectic sound." We do have an eclectic sound. The thing with us was always, this album was always old-fashioned in that it was an album. We all are big lovers of vinyl, and the track listing was poured over because we wanted the end of side A and the start of side B. So,
cool.
Obviously I'd say you listen to the start and it will take you on a journey. There's something for everyone. The singles that we've released, What You Mean to Me stands out as on its own, in its own sound. Fear of Drowning, which was our latest single, definitely had that kind of indie, kind of jangly vibe to it.
Right.
But Red, which is the closer, is probably the closest we get to kind of that Sigor Rós kind of anthemic epic sound.
Yep.
Well, I'll go out on a limb. If I said pick one, I'd say give Out to Dry a listen. It's got a very country, kind of folky country intro. It's got our kind of quiet, beautiful vocal delivery from Luke, which is kind of almost a very soft whisper. There's a middle eight, which is just out of nowhere, which is very much a big kind of swirling sounds. And then it goes into a whole different beast with the three-part harmonies, which is, I guess, another big part of our sound has always been vocals.
And in this reddish colored light, you're dancing round in your mind, but you're running out of time. And you never told me why. You hung me out to dry. You hung me out to dry.
And the drumming seems to be kind of subtle in that one. Do you have to kind of rethink how you're playing? How do you approach each song? Do you take it as it is each individual one, or do you have to?
Yeah, I really enjoy being in this band. I've been in lots of bands before that have been more defined by one style or sound. I was in a band in the UK during the late 90s and noughties, which was an indie rock and roll band, doing our thing.
Uh-huh.
What was great about this band was the ability to play what's appropriate for each song, which is back to my upbringing as a lover of Ringo. The drums are an instrument, treat them that way, don't treat them as a timepiece. The time comes with your playing.
Yeah.
I've never been in a band that I use brushes so much, for example, or swapping from brushes to sticks or different types of brushes, or and then bringing in the drum loops as well. So there's not many songs on the album that have the same drums all the way through, which again is a great it's a challenge, but it's a really fun way of approaching a track. A Cold Wind, which is probably the most quiet moment on the whole album, is Luke brought that song. It's just a tear-jerkingly beautiful, and we were fortunate enough to have Charlie Davenport come and lend us his cello skills on that. And again, from a drumming perspective, that was very much just about this kind of beautiful little brushwork going on. And it was kind of interesting just talking about the drums, because I actually recorded majority of the album 2.5 years ago in a barn in France.
Okay.
Because my parents live in France, and there's an old from England, a record producer and engineer called Terry Bradford, who moved to France, who back in the day was a session guy who, if you listen to anything through the late 60s, 70s and 80s that was recorded in Abbey Road or any of those big studios, he's probably singing backing vocals, keys, or doing keys or bass. He learned how to engineer at Abbey Road, and he fortunately is a friend of my dad and lived locally. And I said, look, I'm coming over. Any chance we can spend some days recording drums? And when I hear the tracks, I think back to, 10 p.m. at night. I'm in a barn with a candle going, playing the drums, listening to the demo, and
Nice.
I have my own experience when I listen to the album.
That's very cool. So the record came out end of November. You did a show at Meow. New Year's coming. What do you got planned? What are you thinking of?
Yeah, so we've got a big. So today's quite a big day, and the vinyl arrived from Holiday Records.
All right.
So Luke has sent some photos to the band chat of the vinyl. So getting our hands on that is going to be exciting tonight.
Yes.
So we had the launch show, which was really enjoyable. We played with Sig Wilder and friends played, and also Harris, which are one of my favorite bands in Wellington, if not the favorite. And then New Year, we've got just putting the final details on a nationwide tour. So over March and April, we are going to Auckland, Hamilton, Tauranga, Napier, Palmerston North, home in Te Whanganui Atara, Christchurch, Dunedin, and hopefully Nelson, my old stomping ground. We're just looking to get that sorted as well. We have to do a stop in Nelson.
Of course you do.
So there's a big plans for the band in the early part of next year. Yeah.
All right. And is it going to be another 5 or 6 or 7 years between albums, do you think?
Yeah, let's hope not. No. I mean, we need to streamline our mixing process, but no. Like a lot of bands, I guess, your debut album is the album that you've road tested, you've gigged it. We've been playing these songs for a long time, and of course we're still adding new stuff. There's new songs that for us are kind of staples of the set that aren't recorded as yet. So there will be down the track. But at the moment, I guess our plan now is really, we're incredibly proud of this album. It's it's something that it's everything we hoped and more. And now, of course, it's not ours anymore. It's for people to pick up and listen and enjoy and hopefully dig it and come and see us or listen online, or you can buy the album on Bandcamp and all that stuff.
Right. And you got vinyl now, so it's complete.
Something to touch. And CD. Believe it or not, Muddy, some people still have CDs.
I've got thousands of them. Oh, man. But that's another story. All righty. Well, I'll let you get back to playing your records and your CDs, and we look forward to seeing you when you come up here next year. It'll be fun.
Definitely, Muddy. Thank you so much. Great to chat to you.
If you enjoyed this episode of the 13th Floor's Music Talk series, please be sure to subscribe to the website or to the YouTube channel. Follow us on Facebook or Instagram and wherever you find your podcasts. There's a whole lot more to discover.